Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. So today I'm delighted to be joined by Marnie Greggs. Marnie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Simon. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah. Let's pretend we haven't been chatting about
Right.
pigs, dogs, and pugs, and poodles, and geckos for the last 10 minutes. So Marnie is a mum. Now, do you call yourself an adoptive mum? Well, I mean, you've got 10. You're wrangling 10 kids at the moment. I think you said last time.
Yes, 10 right now.
10 right
we
now.
have 2 biological kiddos that are 18 and 20. And then we have 6 adopted children that range in age from 6 to 14. And then we currently have 2 foster children that are 9 and 6 months.
Wow. When you told me that when we spoke the other day, I was like, we have enough on our plate with 2 dogs and 2 pigs. How do you cope with 3 dogs, 10 kids? How many cats have you got?
2
2
cats.
I think the geckos can't be too much trouble, and the tortoises can't be too much trouble. But yeah,
actually, the tortoises are a lot of work. They're big. They're sulcatas, so they're 50 pounds each.
Wow.
Yeah, no,
I
think everyone is used to doing what they do every day, and so I don't know any different than wrangling my brood of humans and pets. So
yeah. And you also worked for the Grace Retreat, right?
yes, so I work for a nonprofit here in Tucson, Arizona, that licenses and recruits and trains foster homes and adoptive homes in our community.
Wow. And what better person to come alongside those families than you with 10 kids? Like you know the stuff from the coalface, right? This isn't theory. It is
not.
No.
It's not arbitrary information that I'm sharing with families, and I tell them that all the time. I'm like, who's better to support you and know what you need than someone who's doing it themselves or has done it in the past? So I think that's what makes our agency pretty unique, is that a lot of people who work for us have been foster parents, are adoptive parents, been adopted, been in foster care. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Because as well as that, listeners, Marnie is an adoptee too. So you're covering all the bases. So when I contacted your colleague, sorry, I forgot her name. And she came back and she said, oh yeah, Marnie's the person that you need to speak to. She's an adoptive mom and an adoptee. And I just thought, and so you got this professional thing. I was just like, my heart kind of leapt, because the different hats and the different perspectives that you bring to this from a lived experience, and also the fact that you have, because you are supporting other people, you've got that other perspective. You've got the distance. The perspective is the ability to see the wood for the trees, to see how your experience differs between each of your kids, and how your experience differs for each of the families that you support. It's just like brilliant. An ideal guest that made my heart sing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I tell people I live, eat, and breathe foster care and adoption 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Hopefully you do get some sleep. Do you dream it as well?
Oh yeah. Yes, I dream I have meetings and reports due and kids to get to therapy or to school. So it's constant.
Yeah. What if it is one big dream, right? Okay, so thriving adoptees. What comes to your mind? What's your definition of thriving adoptees?
I definitely would think having the knowledge of your own experiences as an adopted person and how it's kind of shaped who you become and who you are and how you interact with the world. So ideally that's a positive experience, but I know there's a lot of people out there that didn't have a good adoption experience, or they haven't really thought out what they've been through in their life and how it's impacting, their day-to-day living. So I definitely consider myself as someone who is a thriving adoptee. I'm a little crazy. I mean, I've got 10 children, and I think anyone would say there's something wrong with her. But I definitely had a really good adoption experience. My parents had two biological sons of their own. They're my brothers. They're 6 and 8 years older than me. And they really wanted a daughter, but they couldn't have any more children. So my mom at the time was working as a social worker for probation for teen girls. And she got connected with an attorney and did a lot of really good work for him. And she told him, I want a baby girl. Like, if a baby girl comes up for adoption, like, please call me. And so that's kind of how I became part of their family. I always knew, like, people always ask, like, how did you find out you're adopted? And I always knew I was. Like, it wasn't a conversation I remember having. But I remember being very, very little and thinking about it, thinking about biological family, thinking about where I came from, because I didn't have any information. It was a closed adoption. So, I think people who are adopted make up stories to try to fill in the gaps of the unknown information that the information they don't have. So, in my case, I made up the story that William Shatner was my biological father. I believed that for a large majority of my childhood. I think my adopted mom was a huge Star Trek fan, and she was very into going to conventions and had a lot of memorabilia around the house and watched it all the time. So I just made that connection that maybe I was like their love child or something, and they didn't want to tell me because he was a movie star. And so I think that's really funny. I ended up meeting him when I was 12, which was really weird. So I think, I think back to my childhood and have really fond memories of being adopted. I was proud. I was excited to tell people. They would always come to me and say, you're not adopted, you look like your family. And I would say, no, go ask them. And they'd go to my parents and they would tell them I'm adopted. And I would just be so excited about that I don't know, I was very proud about it. So for me, my adoption experience was really positive.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you're talking about William Shatner before he started wearing the girdles and stuff, right?
The what now?
The girdles to keep his belly in.
Yeah, and before he went to space, like all of those things. But yes, for sure. Either that or I was a Vulcan, like
Vulcan, yeah. And it's not. What was the other show that he was in afterwards? TJ, was it TJ?
TJ Hooker.
TJ Hooker.
Yeah, TJ Booker, maybe. I can't remember now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was the Star Trek era that in which William Shatner was your dad. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. I want to take you back a bit to, you said that being a thriving adoptee, you need to know how it shapes you. So how do you think it has shaped you?
I mean, the biggest and most forefront thing that comes to my mind is the line of work that I've chosen. Yeah. Getting into foster care, I always knew that I wanted to have biological children. I think for me in particular, there was a huge drive to have someone close to me that shared DNA, because I didn't have that growing up. So I really, when I got married, it was a big priority to have biological children. And I'm really grateful I was able to do that. But then once I had my son and my daughter, we were considering, do we have more kids? What do we do? And I had always had adoption in my mind, that I would like to do that. I really was driven to ideally give another child an adoption experience like I had, like that they felt special and honored and chosen to be part of our family. So that's definitely a huge driver from my own experience, was moving into doing foster care and ideally adopting children.
Yeah. Interesting that. So me and my wife haven't got any kids, right? We just have the furry ones. And my wife, I don't think my wife will mind me saying, she's not kid friendly, right? But So that was a decision that I knew that before. Obviously, I knew that before before I got before I asked her to marry me, actually. So I made that choice. I knew that was not going to happen for us. But I do recall at one stage chatting to a friend of mine quite a long time ago, I think, and being with the, I'd like some DNA stuff. I said blood relations, actually, because I don't think I knew the word DNA of early 20s. So yeah, I said it would be nice to share blood, know somebody that I share blood with. But that was a kind of a one-off thought. I remember thinking it, but I don't remember thinking it again. And
Right.
I don't remember remembering that thought much. But like yourself, I was told before I was well, I was told something and I don't remember knowing, like you don't. So that's an interesting one there. What the other thing that kind of came to my mind, you talked about different people having different experience. You hear there's all these strange memes out there in social media land, and so people come up with a new terminology and they say, I don't even know it was a thing. So the one that I've heard recently, I've heard recently is survivor's guilt, and I'm wondering if there is such a thing as thriving adoptees guilt. Because if we say that we've had a good experience, people that haven't had a good experience tend to get quite agitated. They do on social media anyway.
Interesting.
Have you seen that?
I haven't experienced that. I mean, I work with a lot of people that come into foster care, and everyone that's drawn to helping children through this experience has some sort of history with adoption, foster care, childhood trauma, whatever it is that have led them to want to help children in this way. So I've had a lot of people that had bad fostering experiences. They were in foster care when they were children and they had a bad experience. I haven't experienced that so much as people wanting to tell their story. Yeah. And I love hearing their stories, even if it's a sad story, even if it's not the best experience. I still think people can use those to help kids.
Yeah.
Maybe experiencing the same thing that they did, or helping them have a different experience.
Yeah, I think probably it's one of those differences between the online world and the real world.
Sure.
Whereas in the real world, people, we kind of like we birds of a feather flock together. We're a little bit more positive in the real world than we are sometimes in social media world, and also we don't tend to associate with people whose opinions differ of us so varied. Right. Whose opinions and experiences differ from ours so markedly. I don't know. How do you think being an adoptee has shaped the way that you raise your kids?
I think, it's challenging. Parenting itself is challenging. It's incredibly challenging. It's the hardest job I think anyone could be asked to do, or want to do voluntarily and not get paid for it. I definitely think that having my adoption experience, at least for my adopted children, has really helped me understand what it's like to be separated from your people and not know your history. When I was growing up, it was a closed adoption. I didn't have information. I had a little bit of information, but the information I had was actually wrong. And I knew that when and if I adopted children, they were going to know their story. They were going to know everything about their situation that led them into foster care, everything about their biological family that I knew. And I wanted them to know their people. I didn't want them to grow up not knowing they had siblings or not knowing why their mother wasn't able to care for them. I wanted them to maintain any connection that they had with the people that they loved before they came to my home. I truly believe you build upon connection. So the best way for me to build relationships and connections with my children is through their past connections. And that's with, my sibling group of 4 that I adopted. They were very connected to their family members, not necessarily their mom and their dad, but their grandma and their tias and their tios, which is aunt and uncle. And it was important for me that they don't lose those people. They've already lost so much, there's no reason that they would have to lose those people. Obviously, we always have to look at safety and make sure that it's appropriate for them, whatever that contact looks like. And for some of my kids, we follow them on Facebook and we share pictures and my kids can see pictures of them. And other times they're coming over for dinner. So it depends. It varies wildly. And sometimes even from year to year, how parents are doing. But that was something that made me sad as an adoptee, was not knowing, making up stories like, that William Shatner was my dad, or being very small. I remember a very, very common memory for me as a child, being so small, I could sit in a shopping cart, in the front, and looking at women in the store thinking, could that be my mom? Could that be my biological mother? And it was it just was strange to not have that information. So I really wanted my children to know. I will say it's probably the most challenging thing as an adopted mother, to share my kids, to allow this family to become part of our family and to share my kiddos, because I don't do that because it serves me at all because it's hard. I do it because it serves my children.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've mentioned the sibling group of 4. So presumably they were adopted out of foster care. Yeah. Yeah. And the other 2 adopted kids, were they infant adoptions or were they out of foster care as well?
They were also out of foster care. I got them both as babies.
Right.
And so I adopted them. One was, I think, 13 months and one was 18 months when the adoption was finalized.
Right. Okay. So this podcast, as in the episode that the interview we're having now, and the whole thing, right, is about sharing the most important things that the guest have learned that helps either their adoptive kids or themselves thrive as an adoptee, with the listeners, right? So we're trying to help everybody along their own learning curves with what we've learned on our learning curve, right? So what would you like to share with the listeners, given that big space, big expanse?
Wow. First and foremost, if you are an adoptee, or even if you're not an adoptee, consider, foster care and adoption. I mean, that's kind of what I do every day. And there are so many children out there that are either needing a safe, loving home to stay until their parents are able to take them back, or they're looking for a permanent home to finish growing up in. That would be my biggest message, my biggest hope for this podcast, is just to plant some seeds for people to help kids that are in these experiences.
Yeah.
My second, I guess, biggest message would be, I guess, if you're an adoptive parent, if you're drawn to this because you have adopted children and you're looking for information and knowledge on how to best raise your own adopted children, maintain those connections. Don't cut family out because it's hard on you, because it's exponentially hard on our kiddos to be separated from their people. And again, it's not easy, and it's not always fun, and it's hard to share. But, we learned that in kindergarten, how to share with others. And, I always tell my kids, you can never have too many people loving your children, right? Like, you can never have too many people that are invested in their well-being. So really consider that. And if it was a closed adoption, it's so easy to find people these days. It's, with DNA testing and all of these things, I think it's so easy to locate family members. And even if it's just through pictures or cards or, letters sharing back and forth, I clung to every little bit of information about my childhood and from my biological family. And so, the more you can put together for these kids, the less they're going to wonder about who they are. Like, it's hard to form yourself as a human being when there's that chunk of information that's missing. So.
Yeah, that's the theme that keeps on coming up, actually. Not knowing, not knowing, and it's a really strange one because it didn't bother me.
Right.
Well, it's not like it didn't bother me; like, didn't even cross my mind. I've heard this. It's a mass generalization, right? But women tend to think of, tend to question more than men, apparently, or girls question more than boys, as a mass generalization. And I hope that doesn't get me in trouble with anybody. It is just a mass generalization. One of the biggest things that I've heard one of the most significant learnings I've had from doing this podcast was from a lady like yourself, who is an adopted mum and also professionally, Holly Ann Petrie. She was on the podcast last year, and she came up with a title for her podcast, which was Unpacking Our Own Baggage as Adopted Parents. So this was all about the relationship starts with us. So we need to be in a world that's kind of obsessed with the parenting techniques or techniques for raising adoptive kids, or trauma-informed care. Everything. It's all about the kids. She was saying, no, it starts with us as adopted parents. So what do you make of that?
It's funny to say unpack your bags as an adopted child. I have suitcases that I can't open. I don't know what's inside of them. Like, there's history and knowledge, and it's hard to unpack a bag that you don't have the key for. So I think a lot of, and again, that drives me to make sure that I get a locksmith out. I know we're speaking metaphors.
Yeah.
A locksmith, open up my kids' suitcases so that we can unpack this stuff. And when you adopt a child who's 9 years old, they've got, 7 or 8, 9 years of history that you have no idea what they've experienced. You have no idea. And trying to build a relationship with them so that you can have those conversations, that you can unpack it, I think is critical, challenging, but very critical. I met my biological family my biological mother when I was 19. And I always wanted to know, I needed to see a picture. That's really what it was about for me. I needed to look and see why I looked the way that I did. Whatever reason, that was really important to me. Not the relationship piece, but the biological piece. And so it's a really interesting story. I told my adoptive mom, my mom, that I wanted to, find her. And so she went to help me. We went several places. We went to the attorney who did the adoption, but unfortunately he had just passed away a couple of years ago. So any knowledge he had was gone. We went to the hospital that I was born at, because there was a situation where my mom had taken me there when I was like 2, and one of the nurses said, "You need to get her out of here." Almost like she recognized me. And so my mom freaked out and left. And so she went to the hospital, but there was a dead end there. And we ended up connecting with an intermediary person that could look up information. And it was going to be like $600. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to know that much. That's a lot of money. I don't need to know that much. And so my mom ended up putting an ad, like a little classified ad, in the Phoenix newspaper. And all it said was, "Baby girl born on this day, happy and healthy, searching for birth mother." And we got 2 phone calls. One was not her, and the other one was my birth mother. And what she said was, her husband was an over the road truck driver, and she had cut out an ad of a bad storm that had happened up north and set it on the bed. And when she closed the door, the newspaper flipped over and the ad was there. And it just like gives me chill bumps. Like it was almost like meant to happen the way it did. The fact that she was still in Arizona, the fact that, all of that came to light. It was just very odd and creepy that she was able to see it. So at 19, I was able to go meet her. It was a very awkward meeting. She showed me lots of pictures. I brought pictures of me. And then we didn't really speak or have much contact for probably a decade. And then when I got married and I started having my children, I reconnected, because I thought you should know that she has biological grandchildren out there. So, I was lucky enough to be able to make those connections. It's interesting that as much as a good adoption experience that I had an experience that was kind of not that, which was shocking to me. So my biological father, my mother told me who he was, and I had tried to reach out to him a couple of times over the years, and I'd gotten kind of radio silence. And somehow we ended up friends on Facebook. And so, I saw him doing some posts occasionally, and every couple of years I would reach out and say, "Hey, I'd love for you to meet, your grandkids, and just meet you. I don't want anything, just wanted to meet you." And it was always no reply back. And then I saw a post on Facebook from him that said, "I'm dying of brain cancer. I've only got 6 months to live," or whatever. And I reached out to him again, and he denied. He never replied to me, and then he died. And I was really mad. I was really, really angry about that. And I still don't really understand why, after everything, me being very open and saying, I'm not mad, I don't want anything. I just would, it'd be nice to have met you. And to be denied that, I was really angry for a really long time.
Yeah. Yuck.
Going off track. I'm so sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all. This is the stuff, really. Yeah.
So it's interesting how it pops up, like how it impacts our lives, and how, you think you're doing great, and then something like that happens and you're just thrown off. You're like totally.
Yeah. I was think, I talk about this a little bit, the fact that I've had 2, and it sounds nuts, I've had 2 10-second bursts in 55 years of extreme pain, emotional pain about adoption. And so it's been acute. I think this is the medical term, right? It's acute rather than chronic. I've had chronic stress about business for 30 years, right? It's there, it's not what it was. And some stuff I've been picking up over the last few years has lessened it. It started, that chronic stress started easing maybe 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, perhaps. But it was still a thing, but the adoption stuff, but because I can see the 2 stressors in my life, I can compare one against another, right? And I can also see that the acute pressure, the acute pain around adoption, I can see it because it's so precise and so short-lived, and therefore I can tell that it's not the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whereas if I'd been, some of these people that some of these adoptees that haven't, whose whole experience has been terrible all the way through or for a long way through, they don't have that perspective. They don't have it. It's there. It's like a chronic pain. It never goes away. Or I don't know. It must be. But it must be really, that must be really hard. I'm lucky that I don't fit into that, and but
I am as well.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it. It's like it's not the truth. So we're not in. People say, "Oh, you're in denial," or you're in the fog. This is the favorite one. You're in the fog. Well, no.
Then ignorance is bliss. Isn't that what they say?
Well, that's what they say, but that's what they say. So, and therefore, fog equals ignorance equals bliss. You must be in the fog, Simon. No,
Yeah.
I'm not. There's these two. Extreme narratives around adoption. There's the rainbow and unicorns, and there's the primal wound stroke trauma, forever traumatized. And neither of those, in my opinion, are true. But that's the narrative, and we fall for the narrative as human beings. We listen to people in authority. If you think of the word author and authority, it's the same word, right? It's the same stem. And I fell for that primal wound stuff. I pinned the tail on the wrong donkey. I lay everything at the feet of adoption for a while. And then I found out I was wrong. The voice in my head was a liar.
Right. I was just talking to my 13-year-old adopted daughter. We were driving back from an appointment, and I was actually telling her about your diamond analogy, and she really liked it as much as I liked it as well. But it's so hard to know what's going on in their own minds. I mean, just being an adolescent is pretty horrible. But then being an adolescent who was an older adopted child who feels that loss of her family daily, and the loss of what her life was before, and I think you quickly forget all the bad stuff. Well, I mean, and again, maybe this is not everyone's experience, but I think she has forgotten all of the bad stuff, all of her really bad, horrible experiences, and has kind of let them all go, and she only remembers the good things. And it's not my job to remind her of the bad things, but she longs for her family. She pines for them. And she wrote a story, and she was telling me about it yesterday, and it's something that she did in school. And it was a picture of a girl, and she said it's the girl who looked happy on the outside but who's sad on the inside. And it broke me in half. Because I know it's not about an arbitrary girl who's happy on the outside and sad on the inside. It's about her. And how do we help these children? You were talking about how generations change, and we learn things and we change as a society. The more the better you learn, the better you can be. I think back to foster care 50 years ago, and the ideal scenario was they moved kids every 6 months. They would put them in a foster home and they would move them every 6 months, because the thought at the time was, it's too hard when they attach to somebody, so let's move them so they don't get attached. right? Which to now it's insane. Like, no,
It is.
that's how you create sociopaths. Like,
But
no, like attachments are critical for human beings. Even if there's a loss attached to it, like they have to make those attachments. So, as we've learned better in social work, we do better for our kids. And I'm sure in 20 years, the things that we're talking about now to do with adopted children, they're going to go, that's crazy. That was terrible. Why did we do that? But we only can do what we continue to learn, like you were saying, and grow and do the best with the best information we have right now.
Okay. Wow, that's
Sorry.
it's brilliant.
I'm ADHD, so I tend to go off on tangents.
Maybe I've got a bit of that in me too.
Because we're adopted.
Because we're adopted, right?
That's why. No, I'm kidding.
So, what's the most important thing that you want for your kids?
My mantra as a parent is to raise well-adjusted, happy, functional adults. Like that's
okay.
And that's what I tell them all the time. I'm like, I'm not. My job is not to be your friend. Unfortunately, I wish I could be. Maybe when we're older, we can be buds. But right now, my job is to help you be well-adjusted, healthy, functional adults.
Okay.
So getting them there, is individualized. And I have 10. Like every child is different, and every kid needs something totally different. And I have to adjust my parenting for each one of them.
Interesting.
And their needs, like, what one kiddo needs. I have 2 sisters that are, they're 13 months apart, and they are polar opposites. One is got her heart on her sleeve. She's a people pleaser. She loves everyone. She's emotional. She cries, but then she loves you 2 seconds later. And the other one is totally different. She's very stoic. She's either happy or there's nothing. And so helping her process her life and who she's going to become is very different, just between those 2 girls. So
okay,
it's a lot.
So you want your kids to be well adjusted, happy, and healthy. Okay, so yeah. What's the most important thing that you think you need to do that?
Gosh, there's a whole laundry list. How can I pin it to one thing? Right at this moment, just with the things that are happening with my kids right now, we adopted our sibling group of 4, and they have a brother that has always lived with his father, but recently he got removed and placed in foster care. And so we took him in, and he's right in the middle. So that is stirring up all kinds of things, all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of memories, all kinds of feelings, even sadness for him to have to go through that with my girls in particular. So right now it's really fresh for me and really poignant in being that emotional safety net for them. And God, it's so hard. It's so hard to know, do we talk about it? Do we not talk about it? Is this something I should get a therapist involved in? Like, do I bring it up or do I not? And so I'm trying to, in the best way, just be that emotional safety net. If they need to break down and be sad about it, I'm there. If they're angry about it, I'm there. And one of the things that I think is one of my skills as a parent is being able to see, when my kids when they misbehave, when they have behaviors, we call it, it's not because they're being ornery or they're just wanting to misbehave. There's a feeling behind it, right? We all do this. Like when I'm frustrated or stressed, everyone in my house knows it because I'm, slamming doors and closing the cabinets a little too hard and huffing and puffing. And it's obvious that I'm stressed. And I'm a fairly functional adult. If I can't do it well, if I can't tell someone, hey, I'm stressed, I need some help. If I can't do that well, I can't ask a 3 or 4-year-old or a 9-year-old to do it well. So, being able to see their behavior is a symptom of how they're feeling. And if you can fix how they're feeling, the behavior part goes away. It took me a while to learn this with my 13-year-old, because when she would get confronted with something, or stressed or angry, she would roll her eyes and she would backtalk and she would stomp down the hallway and slam her door. And for me as a parent, that was very triggering to me. I was like, oh no, you're not going to do that. But then I stopped and I thought about it, and if I could go back to why she did it in the first place, and if I could address that, then all of that started to go away. So, you know, just being there and looking past all the stuff that children do that are unpleasant, you know, this, you know, not following the rules or being unkind or whatever it is that you're dealing with as a parent, you're always going back to some sort of feeling that they're having that they can't manage. I mean, all their behaviors, all those big things that we see, the tantrums and things, that is them waving their white flag at us saying, please help me. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I need your help to help me get back to peace. And so it's hard sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, I don't do it well. But I feel like if you can do that as a whole, like the behaviors go away, you don't even really have to address them. Kids know, they know like hitting another kid is wrong. You don't have to tell them it's wrong. They know. Why did they do it? What feeling did they have that they couldn't manage that made them explode in that way? So, you know, tying that up, just like being that emotional safety net, being regulated and my heart rate and myself at peace so that I can bring them back to peace and, you know, lower their blood pressure and have them calm down and be able to talk is my moment to moment priority with my children every day.
Okay. So what's the nature of the diamond?
For my children or for me or?
What's the both?
I mean, from talking to you about that, I guess this is something that I've always really felt like we're all beautiful human beings. And if we can power wash away all the negative thoughts, and that's so hard. I mean, it's so hard for a teen girl to get those negative thoughts, or a 47-year-old woman to do that. To cognitively be able to wash it all away and see.
Yeah, I didn't say that though, did I?
Well, that's my thought.
Okay, what's the nature of the diamond?
Maybe I don't understand your question.
Well, like I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this line of questioning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I am.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so the nature of the diamond is clean.
Mm-hmm.
The nature of the diamond is clean. There's no power washing is required.
Right. I was thinking of all the layers that you were talking about, the thoughts that surround the diamond, the experiences, the history, the emotions, the trauma, whatever.
That's the mucky stuff.
Right.
That's what we do as human beings, right? We're drawn into the drama, whether it's Star Trek, right, or whether it's our own lives.
Right.
Okay, whether it's our own lives. So what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is the diamond is the essence of who we are, and the diamond is obscured or veiled or covered in muck, right? And muck, it's a family show, so I'm using the word muck. But I mean something else, right? The mucky thought, like I'm not good enough, is a constant one for us adoptees, right? Mucky feelings like insecurity and anger, right? So they obscure the diamond, but the nature of the diamond is pure brilliance. It doesn't have any of those thoughts or those feelings. So yeah, the conventional approach would be to power wash the diamond, but then we're trying to get rid of we're trying to get rid of every negative thought and every negative feeling. And I've tried that; it doesn't work. what I'm advocating here is for all of us, and you know, this is to spend our time focused on the diamond, not the thoughts or the feelings, because the nature of the diamond is brilliance. It's sparkly, it glitters, it's perfect. It can't actually be scratched. Diamonds are the hardest substance known to man or woman, right? So you can't, like people talk about the primal wound for adoptees, right? You can't actually wound a diamond. I'm mixing two metaphors here, but it for me it's really because we think that we mistake emotional distress and trauma for damage to the diamond, damage to the soul, damage to the spirit. And so for me, my focus is more and more on the diamond of who we all are, not the muck that obscures it.
I agree. And I think it's brilliant. And again, I get so much so that I was even starting to talk to other people about it. Brilliant. I think reminding all of my kids and all the kids in foster care that is truly who they are, and everything else is workable. Everything else is changeable. Everything else is,
everything does change. Yeah, that's the whole thing, right? That's the whole thing. Everything else changes apart from who we are. Right. Like the science changes. Yeah. The science changes. Like the world used to be, the scientists used to think that the world was flat. The people in authority used to think that it was a good idea to move foster kids every 6 months. Right. Theory changes. Science, so-called science, psychology changes. But the essence of, the perfection of who we truly are, this diamond stuff, that's been around for like 2,000 or 3,000 years. That hasn't changed. The scientists have taken over. The psychologists have taken over. And why are we focused? We're all, it's mindset. It's all focused on the mind. Well, the mind isn't the diamond. The mind is just a collection of thoughts, feelings, stuff like that. So I think for me, like we all, every single one of us just wants to be happy, don't we? Like you want your kids to be happy. We all want to be happy. So we've got to kind of understand where happiness comes from and see it as the essence of who we really are, in my time.
Yeah, I like to think of it as finding peace, finding regulation where your heart rate is normal and your blood pressure is normal and your body is comfortable, and acknowledging those moments of joy. And it's so interesting, like even as an adult, I'll get excited and I'll be proud of something, or I'll be feeling some joy and I will want to shove it down. Because the other shoe is going to drop and something bad is going to happen. So you can't get too happy, right? You can't get too full of joy over this.
That's the scary bit, yeah.
Right, but I'm working really hard.
You can't be this good, right?
Right, I work really hard to sit in the joy as much as I sit in the hard parts. And really, and my main focus isn't necessarily to be happy, but it's to be at peace. Okay. And to be comfortable.
Good point. Okay. When I mean happy, I don't mean grinning. Right. I mean content. Content. and peaceful.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. You thank you for mentioning that, because I was definitely misleading the listeners there.
No, it's just nuances of the thoughts of it.
It's nuances, but I think it's really important. Because I had a couple of really Beezer days, actually, really great days, right? Like above content, above peace, you know.
Yeah.
And then when was it? I think it was Tuesday morning. I crashed, and I was like, "Oh no!" And I felt myself going down, and then I thought, "Uh-oh, there we go again." You know, my mentor Liz says, if we're okay with not feeling okay, we're always okay. Because that resistance, for me, that's been the biggest thing. So I heard something this morning. I was listening to a podcast, and the woman was saying how our ego attacks us. So we go on lots of courses. We read books about mindfulness or happiness, or go on courses, whatever we do. Yeah, and then we crash. We're high, we're spiritually high, not drug induced.
Yes. Gotcha.
but then we crash. And then the ego comes in and says, Simon, you shouldn't be like this. You've spent all this time, you spent all this money, and you should be doing better. You should be, your mood should be better. And then I'll start. I'll follow that train of thought for a while, and it's like you were talking about Disney. You were talking about working in SeaWorld, weren't it? This is more like the runaway train. What do they call it? Thunder Valley Railroad.
Oh,
on Disney,
like at
World.
Disneyland. Yeah.
Disneyland,
Thunder Mountain.
Yeah, we get on a train of thought, and it's a train wreck, because it's just taking us down until we catch it. And so resisting, I would say, resisting unhappiness causes me more unhappiness. It takes me further down.
Well, I mean, and the ego could be a whole podcast in and of itself. Foster care is really good for me in the sense of it makes me live in the moment, because we don't know how long we'll have children, right? Sometimes they're there for 3 days, sometimes they're there forever, but we don't know. So it's very focused on today and being present. And I'm terrible at being present. I'm constantly living old arguments or old things that happened in my past, or what happened yesterday and I made a fool of myself, or living in the future, worrying, nervous, anxious, or fearful, or excitement. I'm very seldomly, and I think this is true for most people, we're seldomly in the present moment. And that's the one thing that's helped me recently was, like, I had a terrible meeting yesterday. My technology didn't work. It was an important meeting. I am the chair of this group, and my anxiety, the pressure on my chest was overwhelming. And I got in my car and I was prepared to bawl my eyes out. And I just stopped for a minute and I checked in with my body. I'm not good at meditating. I'm too hyperactive for meditation, but I just checked in. What do I see? What do I smell? How do I feel? What does my head feel like? My chest, everything. And I was able to regulate, and I didn't have the meltdown that I thought I was going to, just because and I say this to myself, it's kind of weird, but in my head, I'm like, you're safe. Your people are safe. Everyone is healthy. You're okay. It'll be all right. And I'm now thinking about it. My chest is starting to hurt from yesterday, but like, I'm okay. Like, everyone is okay. And I tell this to my kids a lot too, when they're worked up over something, that you are safe, you are loved, you are okay. but it's hard not to jump on the train. It's
Indeed, yeah.
nearly impossible to not jump on the train.
I get on it all the time.
Yeah.
You know? That's emotional safety net, that knowledge of it's the ultimate safety net.
Mm.
Is the
And
knowledge.
you have to be that for yourself. Like,
Sorry?
I have to be that for myself, because like, if I'm not that for myself, I cannot be that for my children.
Yeah, and if you don't know the emotional safety net if you don't know the emotional safety net is there, you can't tell your kids about it.
Right.
At one point, the clearer that you can see that safety net for yourself, see it, like, not just see it's there, but know it's there and know it's going to support you, right? So we could be doing the high wire, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, you do weight in pounds, don't you, in the US? I don't know what I'm 11 stone, whatever that is. But I could look at a safety net and not know whether it was going to catch me or not, because I might be too heavy, it might go through it, right? So it's not just seeing the safety net, but it's knowing that it's going to work and we're going to be okay. That's as not as a kind of what shall I say? Not theoretical, not a theory in our heads, a theory in my head, or even a feeling in my heart, or maybe a belief in my heart, but something kind of more like deep in my bones, like what do people call an embodied learning. That's where the power is for me, rather than does that make any?
It does. I as you were talking, I'm thinking about my own safety net, and there are most days that I'm like, there's no net. Like, I am doing trapeze work that I didn't stretch for. I didn't practice. And, sometimes I feel like I'm free falling through my experiences and raising my kids. And like, again, and when I do that, I have to say, okay, stop. You're okay. Your children are okay. Your family's okay. Everyone's fine. You're okay. To do that for myself, so I can continue to do it for my kids. So
it's seeing it's there. It's seeing it's there for the first time, which is usually, I think, when we bounce off it. We don't know, it may be a mirage. It may not take our weight, right?
Right.
But once we've fallen and we've bounced, and we have we have a lived experience of the safety net catching us.
Right.
So then we see it for the first time. Then we forget it's there, and we get worried about falling, because as we're doing the high wire act, the guy or the girl with the stick across them, they're never actually stationary. If they're stationary, they fall off. They're always adjusting. It's like micro adjustments all the time. They're never actually they're wobbling, so they could go at any time, but they're just adjusting. And then so we wobble, and then it's remembering that the safety net is there, and then it's forgetting it's there,
right,
and then it's crashing again, and we it's Chumbawamba, isn't it? Chumbawamba is a band, so we get knocked down, but we get up again. Never gonna, I'm conscious of time. Look at the time, Marnie. I've been rambling a bit, haven't I, for the last 10 minutes? What would you like to close with?
Do you have thoughts on that?
No, I'm asking you. I feel that I've monopolized the conversation for the last 10 minutes.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing to kind of put that into perspective, and to be reminded of what I do every day, with my kids and with my families. I do feel that I am a thriving adoptee. I don't pretend that I don't have struggles that I think could be pulled back to that. But again, like I try to work every day to help families and children going through this experience, to get to the other side of it, to find themselves thriving as an adult and grow as a society in the sense of like what's right for these kids, what's right for them.
Yeah.
What's the best path for us to take with them, the journey and the supports and all of the diamonds and the safety nets, and so that we can get them there, and they can be happy and stable and functional.
Yeah. So thriving doesn't mean not having any poop in our lives.
Right. How boring would that be?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when we went to I love Italian food, and went to Sicily 22 years ago, and after 2 weeks I just wanted curry. I'd had enough pizza, and I didn't think I could have enough pizza. You know what I mean? Somebody said you can have 2 weeks of pizza, Simon. 2 weeks of pizza and pasta and chicken in tarragon and all this great stuff. I would say, oh yeah, give me that, but no, I wanted curry. So yeah, we have to have variety is the spice of life. So as always, ladies and gentlemen, listeners, sorry, I should say other stuff as well, shouldn't I? We're not all self-identifying. Listeners, sorry, listeners. There's always show notes for you to check out what the guests are doing, so you can check out the Grace Retreat, and you can connect with Marnie and stuff on social in the links in the show notes. So check out. And Marnie, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and
this is amazing.
And look forward to speaking to you soon. And we'll speak to you too soon, listeners. Goodbye. Thanks a lot.